Hello, everyone. I've got a special guest for you today. I want to introduce you to Kendra, who has been a dear friend of mine for quite a while. I was thinking about that the other day. Like maybe it even feels longer than it is, but we've been friends for quite some time.
Yeah, it's been a good 4 or 5 years, something like
At
that.
least. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I brought Kendra in to play with us and talk today. I want you to get like an inside, I want to say like from the horse's mouth. That's terrible. What I mean is
Yeah.
yeah. I want you to get like an over the shoulder, like personal view to see into what it's like for someone having transformation this far into their experience, because Kendra's been doing that like really deep personal work in so many playing fields and arenas for a really long time. This is what she does in the world. This is who she is. This is, well, a part of. And I want you to see some of what it looks like for somebody who's been doing it this long to be having like, anyway, I'm excited for you to get, she was willing to share, and I know she's going to share vulnerably and beautifully because she always does. So I think this is going to be a fun conversation. So before we jump into all of that, like transformation stuff, will you give a little bit of your kind of your story and background so people can like be in the moment of understanding life now?
Sure. And I thought I knew where to start with that, and now I'm just checking in of where's the what's the thread to pull on with that. Okay, so I'm going to start with body. And so my body has been one of those arenas where it was like my worst nemesis, and then it's become my best friend. And I had done quite a lot of intentional, like this was already a conscious decision, that journey, because in my teens and into my 20s, my body was the thing I was trying to control with food and exercise, and I was living with an eating disorder. And so like my relationship with my body was pretty messed up. You know, it was like on a scale of 1 to 10, it was like 9, you know. And so my my I think my path out of that in my relationship, my body started with a lot of willpower. It transitioned into being more, okay, give myself permission to do what I love, and find the joy in my life, and allow myself to be who I am, which led me to a transition in my career out of a very stable, high flying corporate career to entrepreneurship. And so that all felt like whoopee, woohoo, like I'm doing life on my terms, my jam at my body is like so much better. And then the arena changed to money because I had this beautiful stability with my career and my job, and naively thought that I could just carry that, like just go like from one rung of the ladder and stay on that and keep climbing. But with entrepreneurship, and the complete opposite happened. And because I was not prepared for it, it felt like the biggest failure that I had experienced. And so, yeah, I remember even like probably around the time I met you, Cara, I was preparing to give a talk, and I was going to title it like the 3 Bs, like my body, my business, and my beliefs, or something like that, because it was just like, I was like, oh my goodness, like the same thing is happening with money that I had experienced with my body, of me trying to control my bank account, of the numbers in my bank account being my safety net, in the same way that the numbers on the scale were my safety net in terms of my weight. And just like I had the awareness during that second challenge, the phase around money, of like, well, don't do the same thing I did with body, but I couldn't help it in a way. Like that was just the survival mode that I knew how to be in. And so it took me, for some reason, like the money piece, I guess because I knew I couldn't willpower my way through it, because I already knew that that didn't work so well with the body piece. Like I wasn't trying to willpower it, but because of that, like things even felt harder because I didn't know what else to do, if
Right.
that makes sense.
Exactly. It makes so much sense. You hit up against the, like, this is too big of a bite to take. Like, I can't take a bite this big, and so I'm stuck.
Yeah. And it was just kind of like, all right, trying to approach the money and the business piece in the way that I had learned and the lessons that I had learned from the body and the food piece. And, to some extent, I will say that that worked in the sense of like, I wasn't, um, uh, I don't, it worked in the sense that it brought me a sense of like, okay, I can exhale here because I know I'm on a journey. I know I'm on a path. I can trust this a little bit more, but there wasn't like peace in it. There wasn't like full, like I knew there was still healing to happen, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I
And
had a life raft, but I wasn't like floating on my own.
yes, not actively drowning.
Yeah. Yeah.
So does that bring us to kind of where you were last summer when we decided to start doing this work together?
Kind of. Like I think the money piece was probably even like I was aware of it like a couple years before,
Yeah.
and we had been in a really hard place financially. We kind of came out of that, so there was like money in the bank now, and there was like a little bit more space to live my life and all that kind of stuff, and get support and kind of look at these things with more spaciousness and not like just in contracting scarcity mode. I went into last year, so what was that, 2021, like knowing that money was like that was like one of the intentions of the year of like this is going to be the year of like cracking this money money thing, right? And that's around the time that we met, or not met, but we were talking about this.
Yeah. Okay. And I think for everybody listening, like I know so many of you are nodding and like you can really, really relate to already what Kendra's talking about. So fast forward then to the point where last summer you and I start talking about all of this and ways that we can work together. And I want to make sure everybody understands the depth of work you had done already, like, was remarkable. I mean, you have, when would you say you actually started your, like, on purpose, like doing on purpose, your personal development kind of journey?
um So I would say like subconsciously, probably 2008 or nine or something like that. But I was still in corporate world. I was like still trying to heal the eating disorder, but it was like, okay, yes, go to this class or go to this program or that kind of thing. But then when I transitioned out of corporate and into entrepreneur, so the work that I chose was coaching, which was like deep dive into personal development. So of course, not of course, but like my experience with it was like, oh gosh, like eating it up for me first so that I could then like give it to people. So that would have been 2014. Um, and then with that came different layers of it. So first it was like very like mind based, but then it went dropped into body, and I trained as an embody facilitator, which is where we met. So then it was, how does movement and your body work come into that? Through that I was like, oh, ding ding ding, trauma. So I did a year in trauma resolution training to help facilitate for others, but again it kind of brought up all my stuff to heal. So yeah, there's been multiple layers of it.
Yeah, I just think that the work you do is so beautiful. Kendra has this way of holding amazing, safe space for people to really get fully sort of somatically into their body and experience and release without having to do then that's what I love about embodiment work and somatic work, is that we don't necessarily have to get to the like hours of talking about some specific and then feeling like we have to relive some specific event. We can allow the body to release what's being held. And you are so adept at helping people do that. And also you bring in a level that I don't see in a lot of other people, which is the embodiment piece with a huge dose of creativity. So letting people get into their bodies with art and music, and you have just like this amazing creative wellspring in you. So I love to see the unique way that I see that coming into the world. So I want people to get this like
Thank
idea of who
you.
you are, if they can, in like a snapshot. So then if we fast forward to Kendra's doing this beautiful work in the world and in her own life and all of this healing. And then at some point last summer, we started talking, and I don't remember exactly what it was that.
Yeah, I was just like remembering this, like, I just felt lost. I felt lost, confused, overwhelmed. I'm like, Cara, like, I need help. I've got all these things I want to be doing and I can't do any of them. And I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's going on. And like, yeah, it was just that kind of feeling of, like everything felt so big and I just felt so small and so confused as to where to start.
That's right. I remember now, because there were like 1,000 different ideas that were all
Uh-huh.
so inspired,
Yeah.
but they were so disparate too. Like,
Yeah.
and so it was this stuck feeling. Now I remember.
Yeah.
Okay, so we started with a business intensive. So you and
Uh-huh.
I got together virtually and we did a deep dive into your business. And then after that, you signed up for my 6-month program, Body, Money, Passion.
Mhm.
So I want you to talk about however you want to share, whatever you're willing to share from then to now, and what you're seeing, like what's grown in
Yeah.
this next evolution of you. Because that's, I think, part of what's so cool is when we're on this personal, we call it personal development, but whatever, it's the exploration of self as a human, when we're doing this in a on purpose way, because everybody's already doing it, we're all already evolving. When we're doing it on purpose, and you've been doing this since like 2008, we still get to have these big, like, new layers of like the new version, the stepping into the big new whatever. So
Mhm.
I'm excited now to hear about.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so I'm just gonna take a bold leap and call it rebirth in a way. And it's like perfect timing we're having this conversation, like right around like so many like rebirth themes, because that's kind of what it feels like. Um, and I have so much I want to say, but just on that theme, so I think where I am now, I can look back and see what was happening with a little bit more clarity, right? And I'm writing a short story around this of I can now see, oh, I was in a creative winter. And you talk about the seasonality of things a lot, and that helped me see it too. Of like, I was just in a winter, and I was resisting that with all my might. Um, but and there were so many gifts in that winter, but that winter needed to happen. Like I needed to slow down and basically stop and come to a halt. And part of what I didn't say before, but I had basically been dwindling like client work, all this stuff where it felt like I was doing nothing. And of course I'm doing stuff, right? But like there wasn't that intention or momentum or focus or clarity of what direction to go. So it just felt like this melee of, I pick up this project and put it down, pick up starting writing a book, put it down, do some consulting and put it down, do some coaching and put it down. And but in winter that kind of needs to happen. You have to compost, you have to let things fall away and die and all that kind of stuff that we don't like. But that's kind of like where I was starting from, and then coming out feels more like a rebirth of the I don't even want to say clarity, because I would be lying if like everything was 100% clear, but more of just like, okay, I feel like I know who I am more and I can trust that more. And so whether I am picking up a project and putting it down and picking up another one, whereas like a year ago, I would have judged myself for that. I would have like beat myself up that why can't you continue it and focus and just pick one? Now it's more like, because that's part of the cycle. And that's part, and like all these parts are with me. So let them be here and
Right.
play with them, and without attachment to like how far they're going to get before it's time to put them down again.
And I think you stand now, correct me if I'm wrong. I think a lot of people can relate to where you were standing in the beginning versus where you're standing now. Hopefully people can relate to the now portion, but if not, this will be like a thing to, a carrot for you. But in the before, it has a tendency to feel like confusion and like you were saying, there's the self-blame piece and frustration in that confusion. But where you're standing now is this like knowingness that not only is it part of the path and part of the journey for me to pick up this and then pick up this and move from project to project and thing to thing, but the understanding that you're being guided to do each of those. So it's not that I'm flighty or I can't hold like all the blame things that we put on ourselves. It's actually, oh, this is me following my higher self. Following my higher self over here to do this for a while, and then following as my higher self is like, now we want to do this, and then following this like dance, and so clarity becomes a bit unnecessary as far as what we thought it was before. We thought we wanted the path laid out in front of us. Exactly. We wanted to know the end goal. We wanted all the shit. And now clarity is, I know how to tango. Like I know how to be with my higher self and follow, and I know how to trust that this is for a reason, and I don't need to know the end goal.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, totally. I'm laughing because I'm like, so I'm writing this story and I'm like starting in the first half where I felt like I'm like in this blizzard, like trudging and you can't see. And so all I can see is 6 inches in front of me. And that's the only step I can take. Cause like in a blizzard, like that's all you can trust is like this, where my foot basically already is and like a little bit ahead. Right. And I'm like realizing in the second half of the story, well, I'm still only taking 6 inches steps at a time. Like that hasn't changed, right? Like I'm still only like going boop, and then it's like, oh, okay, boop, and then I can just kind of go like this, but it's with, instead of feeling like, oh my God, where am I? Get me out of here. It's more like, oh, all I have to do today is boop. And like, how great is that? That there's only this small little step to take today, and tomorrow I'll know what to take tomorrow. And
yes, exactly. And will you talk about the emotional feeling, like the regular emotional feelings before, and then the regular emotional feelings now, and then when you're ready, dive into like that journey.
okay, so wait, regular emotional feelings, what do you mean?
Like what
angst?
was the repetitive like things that you were feeling when you were in the I'm trudging and I'm desiring clarity? Like
Okay,
how did
gotcha.
life feel at that point? And then because you're saying like a lot of things, like it's still just the 6-inch steps, but the feeling of it is really different. I wonder if you'll give us more of that, like so we can chew it up a bit more, like the
Yeah,
feeling.
yeah, totally. So I would say in the before, it was like almost felt like waves of depression. And I know you've shared your story around depression, and it's probably on a different level. I wouldn't say like clinically depressed, but but the weight, like the wave comes and you just go, woof, and everything
Yes.
collapses in you. And you're like, I can't, you look at the blue sky and you're like, it might as well be gray. You're just not, nothing's vibrant. Like I'd say another before was the sort of, am I just nuts? Like, like have I lost my rocker? What's going on with me? Like that, really questioning my own, I guess, sanity to a degree, like and moments of it. I guess another one would be like despair of like, I just should give this up, because I've been doing this for 8 years and nothing's coming to fruition and everybody else is so far ahead, right? So the whole comparison thing. And I think also, that just living in a shroud of shame, like of just like all of that piled together. But I think even aside from that, I'm recognizing that I have, like people say, like my disease, like my disease is like chronic shame. It's like my lifelong journey of like, how do I shake this off of me? And so, that has its own flavor to add to all of that, of like, it just reinforces an old story that had always been there.
I just can feel there are so many people who are going to be listening to this with this like little inner part of them popping up, like head out of the blankets, like, wait, what? I'm not the only person feeling this. Because I really think that this is a pretty common, I mean, our lack of worthiness, our fear of not being worthy, our trauma and shame is rather universal and in the human experience. I think there's going to be so many people who are so in awe of and appreciative of being able to hear you talk about this so freely because they can relate so much. So thank you.
I want to say something else around that too, because I think what has kind of made that shame even harder, or I don't know how it's all interlinked, but like I come with a level of, call it privilege, right? I went to like one of the best universities in the US. Like my dad was able to pay for it, right? I didn't walk out with student loans. I landed a job at an amazing worldwide known company. And like there was like all these things going for me in terms of like success and achievement, and like not just getting ahead, but like staying ahead. Cause it's like, oh, you're already starting out with this. So like maintain it, like always had good grades, always never got in trouble, like all those things. And so then to like go through a period of life where it felt like all of that came undone, like I get why, right? Like the universe is like, there's a beautiful book that it's called like Falling Upward or something, right? It's like you have to fall to actually rise to meet yourself and connect with God and like all that. And so, it's like I get that was the journey, but the feeling of it felt like absolute crap. Because it was like trying to let go of all that story of who I thought I needed to be. And I still am in that story to an extent. I was talking about my husband the other day, but it's like I can see it. It doesn't have such a grip compared to it where it did even like 8 months ago.
Exactly. Maybe like it's not in charge anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to you for sharing this. And I think it's really important that we understand that sometimes all of our privilege, whatever it is for each of us, can actually add to the reasons that we are shaming ourselves. The story for why we think we're not allowed to have the struggles or the feelings that we have, because there are people who love me, so I shouldn't be this, or there is this, so I shouldn't be this. I've got that support, so I shouldn't. And it's just, we can use it to add even more blame and shame onto ourselves.
It's like shame will find anything to like make it live. So it's just gonna grab.
Yes.
Like,
It's
oh, I'll
so
take that
adept
one.
at that. It's amazing.
It's like, what else can feed me?
Yeah,
Feed
let
off.
me take like really good things in your life and turn them into something terrible.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about what the feelings are now. Now,
Okay.
like the normal kind of in these categories we're talking about, or in life or whatever. What are the usual things that you're feeling now?
Okay. So again, where do I want to start with that? So I think as an experience, like most of it feels like the joy, there's like a smile, there's like a twinkle in my eye, there's like life, like, ooh, this is going to be fun kind of thing. And um, I'd say like on the two places it feels most profound is around money and passion piece of it, where the money piece of it, actually the money piece feels less like joy. The money piece feels more like, okay, it feels more like, all right, I don't know what emotion is that, like acceptance, but in a very like chilled out, like I don't know I don't know what emotion that is. My therapist tells me I need to find more words for my emotions instead of hand gestures. I'm like, well, I'm sorry, I just have hand
How
gestures.
would we explain anything without hand gestures? I don't understand.
I'm like, I'm just like, oh, I don't, yeah. So that's what money feels like to me more now. It's like it comes, it goes. Right now, it's going more than it's coming, which is like an ironic like place to be talking about this and live with people. But like that's a reality, and I'm kind of like, oh, I get it now. Like I'm being asked to like be chilled out in like the emptying of the bank account, because then like when it comes, it's not like, oh my God, finally. Like it's not my savior, like I'm saved without it. So like great, like I can't wait for it to come in my bank account. But right now, like I'm good, I'm cool. So I guess there's an element of safety around money now that wasn't there before, security. And I feel like my relationship with money has shifted where it feels like I can receive love from it. I think like that's the biggest thing. Whereas like before it was just it almost like a punisher. And now it's like, oh no, I can receive love. And I think that also mirrors like how my relationship with God is shifting too. This like strict, punishing figure to like, oh no, God as love. So that feels like a mirroring journey there.
Wow. Okay. I want to like shine a big spotlight on what you just said, because I felt it so deeply. So just for everybody listening, can you imagine feeling safety and security with money, even while the bank account's going down, while the numbers are going down or up, whatever, that it feels like you receive love from money, regardless of what's happening in the bank account, whether it's going down or whether it's going up. Can you even imagine that level of, when I talk about our relationship to money and wanting to have like a healthy relationship to money, this is what I'm talking about. This is it. And it makes me so happy. So before, how would you have felt? Well, maybe how did money feel before, even with up or downs in the account?
Well,
I was going to say,
I'm remembering like one conversation we had, because you had said something to our group and you were something like, okay, this is going to plant seeds for a lifetime. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. But like, I need this to work. Right. So like, that's where I was. I'm like, that's great for a lifetime, but like, you don't understand, like in 6 months, like this has to look different. Like, so I think that shows where I was. It was like, no, the money, like it can't go below where it is now, like it needs to be on that constant rise ladder thing. I mean, again, mirroring my story of like, it needs to go up, but
yes.
sometimes you got to go back to go forwards. I always tell myself that. I learned that in soccer. It's a life lesson.
I love that. Yeah. So thinking about that in soccer, you're going to go back so that you can move forward again. That actually, I like that in my brain a lot. I don't know how to play soccer, but I like that in my brain.
You have to pass it back sometimes to get around the obstacle to go forward and whatever. So anyway.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing that we really don't understand that in life. Like we really don't get it. Yeah. We are so hard on ourselves anytime any area of our life feels like we think it's going backwards, or even pausing. Mm-hmm. Right? You can imagine like playing soccer, if you're trying to move up the field or whatever it's called, and there's an obstacle, and if you can pause for 1 second and the obstacle's moving, then you'd be able to go forward with ease. Totally. And we just can't see what's ahead of us. That's the thing, is like your higher self is designing this whole plan. There might be an obstacle right in front of you. And if you just pause for a second and your higher self is like, hey, now go work on that creative project. But you're like so mad that this thing's not moving. You don't understand that in just a second or a week or a month or a year or 5 years, I don't know. But when that obstacle that's ahead of you that you can't see moves, this is going to go forward with such ease straight to the goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And what you're saying, like, so the second, to answer the second part of the question around like passion and like what's kind of come alive for me in that, I feel like it's that. I feel like, I had a huge codependent relationship with Excel spreadsheets of like this, I need to put this in the plan and I need to put this in there. And then I need to like, once it's in this Excel spreadsheet, poof, I'm safe kind of thing, And so part of what I'm learning about myself is, again, all these different balls I'm juggling or projects I want to do, or, pots on the burner. And so, coaching is one of them. There's consulting, there's writing a book, there's DJing, there's, how to dance sober, there's embody, there's all these different things, right? And like there's a time and a place for all of them, and they all don't have to happen at once. And that's something that I couldn't wrap my head around last year, because it felt like if I had said I was going to do something and then that thing wasn't succeeding, then I was sitting in a place of failure, which is where the shame could sneak in. And now it's like, well, if I say I'm going to do something, like I'm going to take action towards it, but more relaxed about it and more like, well, I might take the action towards it. And then like halfway through, what used to feel like getting sidetracked or like an escape or like a distraction, like you're saying, it's like, because maybe that is the natural path of the way that things to unfold, because this, project A needs to simmer a little bit longer at this stage before I come back to it. Yes. And so I like feel the peace in that a lot more. And so, I mean, if you were to look at my day to day or week to week, it would probably look chaotic, but I'm finding my own rhythm in that, which makes me feel like I can hold it a lot easier.
Yes. And I know every multi-talented, multi-passionate person out there who hears this is going to be like, what? This is possible? One of the things I remember, I don't always remember varying degrees from readings, but I remember there was a piece or kind of an element in the reading that we did in your business intensive that was really about you being able to go from the like, have to not make it happen, but like put effort in, like to this place where you could be in an allowing of like letting all this stuff come to you. And that's where I hear you standing now, which is amazing.
Yeah, it was the rocking chair. It was like, your job is to sit in the rocking chair and rock that baby.
Yes. I remember. It's so good. It's so good. And it's so fun now to like, not very long later, it's not been a year, like to see you standing in that exact place that at the time was like, so far out of realm of possibility.
Yeah.
Okay. I have one last quick question for you. Would you offer people any suggestion that comes to mind, or any tidbit of wisdom or practice that you like for people who are standing in a place where maybe they feel more like you did at the beginning of this journey, or are standing in that it's even more than overwhelm, it's like stagnation because there's so much and everything feels so big. Anything that like a tidbit of wisdom or something that you love from your work, or anything that pops into your head for someone standing in that place?
Well, this is what came. It's like, it's okay to go slow. I mean, I still, like, a part of me still doesn't quite believe that, but a part of me knows that. And like my nervous system is starting to catch up to that knowing. And so the rest of me is starting to trust it a little bit more. But I think that's a part of it. And, even if I think, that comment too, of like, no, but this needs to work, it's like, And it was like, in the 6 months, this needs to work. There's like a speed and a sense of urgency and something like that around that, that actually, what I find in me makes me want to force something. And where I find that the ease and the joy comes is more from that like combination of action and receptivity of like, I've got the nudge to work on this today, so I'm going to work on that today, and I'm going to delight in it. I'm going to delight in the shitty first draft. And instead of feeling like, oh my God, this needs to be finished today because I need to send the newsletter tomorrow and these people are waiting, and just, you know, like this angst that can come from it. It's like, oh, I wrote the shitty first draft today. Like, cool. You know, and tomorrow I'm going to pick up it again, and like there's going to be a second shitty draft, and like eventually it's going to be one that feels good to send out, and that's going to resonate with people, and that's where the magic is going to happen, instead of, you know, pushing and trying to force something before it's time.
So good. So good. And I know that part of what I love about this is I know that people can hear your words, but they can also feel your energy. They can feel, because you're actually in this place. Like this is true to you in your system, in your life today. And I think there's so much power for us in meeting someone who's standing in a place that we want to be able to stand in, because you know, we are energetic beings. Our bodies are animals, and we know how to co-regulate. We know how to stand next to someone when we are anxious, who is really grounded, and then our body knows how to be like, oh, I think maybe everything's fine. And we can do the same thing to varying degrees. There's a whole lot of empaths listening to this, so they can do it usually even like to the nth degree sometimes, where we can feel something that someone is experiencing, and we can start to begin to like, I imagine that now I can wrap my head around that. So thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for coming and sharing so vulnerably who you are with everyone, because I think you're just the most special.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah. Thank you for all your support and your guidance and everything that's helped facilitate me to have this conversation with you. So
It's been my deepest pleasure. It's so fun to witness your journey and get to be a cheerleader on the side. And yeah, I think you're amazing.
well, forever grateful. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. And honestly, thank you for being who you are in this world, because it's important, so much more than you realize. For those of you who are feeling inspired or curious or called to doing a little more work with me, our small group coaching intensive 6-month program, Body-Money-Passion, is currently open for applications. We're only taking 7 people for this group. So if you're interested, head over to the website or check the show notes below. Thank you for bringing all that you are to the world. If you enjoyed this, please share it with your friends. We would love, 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 love if you'd leave a review. And until next time, deepest bow of gratitude.